times the charm. Hello, it's Miss Johnson. I keep having to re-record this video, but this is the one for real. Definitely no problems. Okay, this is the review for the group quiz on Tuesday. On Monday, we did this in class, but this is each question in excruciating detail. Feel free to skip around. Feel free to make me talk fast or whatever. This is just a resource for y'all to study for the quiz. All right. Number one, the point of this is that we've got an exponential equation. We want to fill in this table, and we want to write the explicit equation, right? When we fill in a table, we always want to do the whole number stuff first. So when we went from 1 hour to 2 hours, we went from 6 bacteria to 18, which was multiplied times 3. I know it's multiplied because this is an exponential growth where we know it's multiplication. So from hour 2 to 3, we multiply by 3 and get 54. From hour 3 to 4, we multiply by 3 and get 162. If we go backwards in time, so from hour 1 to 0, we would just divide by 3. And then once we have our whole number hours filled in, we can write our explicit equation. We say we start at 2, and we multiply by 3 each time. The start is 2, we multiplied by 3 each time. All right, now let's fill in the half steps. If we want to fill in the half steps, we need to break 3 into 2 pieces. We do not do this by division. We do this with square roots. We want 2 things that multiply to 3 so that we can do it in the half steps, but we also want it to be the same thing. And this is exactly the number square root of 3. So each of these numbers is just 2 root 3, 6 root 3, 18 root 3, etc. We just multiply the last thing by the square root of 3. That's it for number 1. For number 2, simplify the following using exponent rules. As we use the rules, I'll write them over here so we know what we're doing. For the first one, the first thing we want to do is say that if we've got x to the m times y to the n all to the power of, p, we just get to multiply the powers together. So here, x to the negative third squared is x to the negative 6. Y to the fourth squared is y to the 8th. And the thing in the back parentheses is already simplified. We don't have matching bases, and we don't have matching exponents, so there's nothing we can do to simplify those more. So we're just going to write them without the parentheses and then start to combine them with our other stuff. The next rule is if we've got x to the m times x to the n, we just get to add those exponents to combine these two. For us, that means negative 6 plus 6, which is 0 for the x's. And for the y's, we get 8 plus a negative 3, which is positive 5. The last rule that's important is when x is not equal to 0, which is most always, x to the power of 0 is 1. So we basically just get to cross out any thing to the power of 0 and leave it out of our final answer because we're just multiplying by 1. All right, let's run it back. The purple rule is the one we're using first. On the denominator only. I'm going to rewrite the numerator because it's already simplified. The denominator, x squared squared is x to the 4th. Y to the 5th squared is y to the 10th. And z cubed squared is z to the power of 6. The next thing we'll do is a division rule. I'll write it in green because it's almost a spooky color. I'm sorry, I'm running out of spooky colors. Whenever we have x to the m divided by x to the n, we subtract those exponents, right? Division with exponentials is subtraction in the exponent. So here we say 10 minus 4 is 6. For y's, we've got 4 minus 10. We get negative 6. And for z, we've got 6 minus 6 giving us 0. Our black rule means we get to cancel this one out. And then the very final rule, which I really don't have another spooky color, I'll use gray. X to the power of negative m is 1 divided by x to the m. Whenever we have a negative exponent, we just get to flip it to the bottom. So this gray rule dictates that this -6 means we should write y to the power of 6 in the denominator. And we just get to rewrite this one in the numerator. Nice. For this one, the only rule is this gray one, and we're just finished. Whenever we have a negative exponent, we just get to put it in the denominator. All right. Part 3, radicals. Simplifying radicals always starts with number 1, break each number into its prime factors. By this, I mean we'll start with 49 over here. 49 is 7 times 7, and then these are each prime. So we want to rewrite this as 7 squared, L cubed, e to the 4th, j to the 5th. I want to rewrite my number as a prime factor. And rewrite. Look for groups of n for the nth root equations, right? What this means is when I've got, let me move this over a little bit. Fine. When I write this out, I can say that there's 2 7s, there's 3 L's, there's 4 E's, and 5 J's. I am looking for groups of 2 because square root is an implicit and implied 2. So I've got a group of 2 7s here, I've got a group of 2 L's here, I've got a group of 2 E's and another group of 2 E's. I've got 2 groups of 2 J's. I've got a leftover L and a leftover J. When I'm looking for these groups, I get to bring out 1 from each group, and then I rewrite the leftovers under the root. And then for my final answer, I would say 7 times L. There's 2 E's, so I'll say E squared. There's 2 J's, I'll say J squared. And then this one becomes LJ in the bottom. And that's your final answer. Let's run it back. And let me give myself more space. I'll do this one in black. The first thing, I want to break 144 into its prime factors. So 144, I can divide it by 16. I can divide 16 into 2 and 8. I can do this one into 4 and 2. I can do this one into 2 and 2. 9 breaks them into 3 and 3. And then all of these are prime. So we're finished. I broke it into prime factors and I rewrote it. So this becomes 2 to the power 4, 3 squared, because there's 2 3's and 4 2's. I keep the x to the 10th. This time I'm looking for groups of 3 because my tiny number in the root is 3. So I have, if I've got 4 2's, I've got 1 group of 3 and a 2 left over. Bring these here. I don't have 3 3's, so I can't bring those up front. I've got 10 x's. I've got a group of 3 here, a group of 3 here, and then a group of 3 here. So I've got 1, 2, 3 groups of 3 with 1 left over. So my 1 leftover stays here, and my 3 come out. And then I'll simplify a bit. I'll say 2 times 3 times 3 is 18. So this is definitely a 3. If we wanted to, we could have written this one out like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then my groups would have been 2s, 1 left over, no group of 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 left over, which is why I eventually get this is my answer. For part C, I get to use this exponent rule to distribute the 1/4 to all of these things. So 81 to the power of 1/4 times f. 12 times 1/4 is 3. So the f is going to be a 3. And then the 4th root of 81, the 1/4 can be written as the 4th root. Over here, if I break 81 up, I get 3 times 27, I get 9 times 3, and I get 3 times 3. That's a 4. These cancel, and I just get 3 times f cubed. Simplifying at this point also can mean putting it in the calculator, where we get 81 upper caret 1/4 equals, and then it'll give you 3. All right, that's those. And I'll post these notes alongside this video so y'all can read along. Solve the following quadratics using the indicated method. Let's factor, let's use the vertex form, and then let's use the quadratic formula. Factoring, the first step on factoring. Your notes should say rewrite so that we're in standard form and equal to 0. What that means is we want to come by here and subtract 24 from both sides so that we can look at our problem like we usually look at it. Now we want to multiply to negative 24 and add to 5. The way to do that is 8 and 3, where this is negative. Because there's no a out front, I just get to write these numbers as my factor. And then my final step, because all of these, the final answer will be x equals 2 numbers. My final step is to set this equal to 0 and solve for x. And then also set this equal to 0, the other factor equal to 0. And then get my 2 answers from that. You might notice that we can set these equal to 0 and solve, or when there's no number out front, it's just the inverse of this. It's just if this is x minus 3, this is a positive 3. If this is x plus 8, this becomes a minus 8. For vertex form, again, same thing. The first step is to set equal to 0 by subtracting 10x from both sides. I'm also going to put the 10x in the middle, the negative 10x in the middle, because I'm used to looking at it as x squared, x, and the number, and I want to keep that going, right? That's how all our steps are, so that's how we should do it. Our next step is write the skeleton of vertex form. Start filling in numbers. We do b divided by 2 divided by a, but there is no a. I do negative 5 times negative 5. And then I subtract 9 minus 25 is negative 16. I'm going to write this all in one color because sometimes it's easier to look at. Right? This is our vertex form. It's not our answer, though, because our answer will be 2 numbers that equal x. The way to get our answer is we're going to add 16 to both sides. We're going to take the square root of both sides. Knowing that whenever we took the square root, that's when the plus or minus comes in. We'll add 5 to both sides. Then this one is when we pick 4 plus 5. This one is when we put negative 4 plus 5. So our answers become 9 and 1. Last one. The quadratic formula. You'll probably have this on your note card because I gave y'all a note card. Eventually, it'd be cool to memorize this, but that's just me, your teacher. The quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The big thing is, if we can tell what our a, our b, and our c are, we basically get to copy and paste this equation. Let's actually copy and paste it. We're on a computer. Why not? Basically get to copy and paste this equation, but every time I see b, I'm going to plug in a 5. Every time I see a, I'm going to plug in a 3. And every time I see c, I'm going to plug in negative 2. And now I simplify. Negative 5 plus or minus stays like this. I'm going to simplify things under the square root first. 5 times 5 is 25. 4 times 3 times 2 is 24. And then a negative times a negative is a positive. So this all is going to be positive 24. 2 times 3 is 6. Now, nope. 25 plus 24 is 49. The square root of 49 is 7. And then this is where I get my two answers, right? X and X. This one, this first one, will be negative 5 plus 7 divided by 6. And this second one will be negative 5 minus 7 divided by 6. This one ends up being simplifying to being 1/3. And this one ends up simplifying to negative 2, giving us our two answers. Y'all, this looks a hell of a lot like the quiz tomorrow, right? If you understand this video, if you're feeling good about this kind of stuff, and if you're working well with your group, I think this should work well, right? In the event that this is still confusing, come before school tomorrow. I get there at 7 a.m. and I can talk to you before class. All right, I'll see y'all then.